Okay. Good morning. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Attorney General Eric Schneiderman, and I'm joined by my Labor Bureau Chief, Terry Gerstein, Deputy Bureau Chief, Renika Moore, Section Chief, Seth Kupferberg, Assistant Attorneys General Larry Reyna, Heya Yim, and Claudia Enriquez, also from our Labor Bureau, and Assistant Attorney General Justin Diebler from our Civil Rights Bureau. We are here this morning to announce a major step in our campaign to deal with the epidemic of wage theft and misclassification of workers, particularly the wage theft that permeates the fast food industry. Since I've taken office, we have uncovered and investigated wage theft at Domino's pizza stores across New York State. We've busted 12 different franchise owners, collectively operating 61 restaurants in 14 different counties each time, uncovering a pattern of illegal conduct aimed at denying hardworking New Yorkers their full wages. This means that we have already busted close to half of the stores owned by Domino's franchisees in New York. We have won settlements totaling $1.5 million, won restitution for thousands of workers, and put into place safeguards at each franchise to ensure that these workers are paid their full wages going forward. But the deeply rooted problems of unfair wages at Domino's Pizza persist really like an epidemic without a cure across the company's stores. Well, today, after almost 4 years of investigation, we can tell you why, and we can tell you what the cure is. The lawsuit we filed today lays out in explicit detail how Domino's national headquarters exerts direct and specific control over the franchises we've named in our lawsuit and others we've already settled with. Control that leads to practices that systematically deny hundreds, actually thousands of workers their full wages. As a part of our investigation, we examined how Domino's operates from top to bottom. We took sworn testimony from independent Domino's franchise owners, from numerous very high-level corporate officials at Domino's headquarters. We spoke with many delivery workers and reviewed thousands of documents. What we uncovered was an appalling pattern of wage violations stretching across all their franchises. Sub-minimum wages, underpayment of overtime, unlawful misuse of New York's tip credit, and a failure to reimburse workers fully for job-related expenses. Payroll data we uncovered during the course of our investigation showed us that over a nearly 2-year period, 33 out of 42 Domino's franchisees in New York State, and there are 42 franchisees operating about 130 stores, 33 out of the 42 reported paying their workers wages that were below the minimum wage. This is in their own payroll records. Think about that. The very payroll reports maintained by Domino's showed us that they denied their workers even our state's minimum wage. They had the records. They knew this. Our investigation also found that 36 of the 42 franchisees paid less for overtime than required by law. In short, 86% of Domino's franchisees in New York reported paying wages that violated one or more of the most basic safety net laws protecting workers. This is widespread, systemic illegality, and it victimizes some of the most vulnerable workers in our state. So today we are taking a major step towards ending this pattern of exploitation by filing our action against Domino's Pizza LLC, the largest pizza delivery chain in the country, and the corporate head for more than 130 franchise stores in New York State. Our enforcement action also names 3 Domino's franchisees, Anthony Maestri, Shuaib Ahmed, and Matthew Denman. We allege that the Domino's parent corporation was a joint employer of hundreds of workers at the 10 stores owned by these 3 franchisees. We further allege that Domino's actions, as well as those of the local store owners, led directly to over $500,000, and that's a very conservative estimate, in wage underpayments to those workers. As set forth in the petition, affidavit, and exhibits we filed today, Domino's headquarters has exercised wide control over the operations at each individual store. For example, Domino's requires all franchisees to use the same payment software system known as Pulse at every location. Domino's told its franchisees that they could use this software to generate payroll reports. The franchisees, relying on guidance from Domino's, used Pulse system to do so. But the payroll reports generated by Pulse were deeply flawed in ways that led to underpayment to employees. As we allege, the Pulse system, which Domino's required all franchises to use, systematically undercalculates workers' wages. The use of Pulse directly resulted in wage underpayments by the franchisees in this case and by many of the franchisees with whom our office has already settled. And even after Domino's became aware of these flaws and that the software, which they required franchises to use, was causing workers to be cheated out of their wages, headquarters refused to change. They continued to require that Pulse be used. In fact, during our investigation, we uncovered internal Domino's emails and got sworn testimony from Domino's executives demonstrating that Domino's unquestionably knew about the flaws in their system and the resulting underpayments as far back as 2007. There are just two examples here. These are internal emails in Domino's. I'm told the Pulse system does not currently function to pay a driver a different rate of pay in the same shift, and therefore franchisees are just paying the tip wage, that's the lower wage you're allowed to pay when someone's getting tips, for the entire shift, which is not following the law. 2007, they knew their software system, which they required every franchise to use, was causing them to violate the law. They did not fix it. They did not tell the franchises, you're violating the law. 2009, we're probably not paying our drivers properly. Again, they've known for years that they were causing their franchises to violate the law. They did nothing to fix it. As we allege, in fact, Domino's chose to hide the flaws and stand by as thousands of workers over many years were cheated out of their wages. And as we allege in our petition, Domino's not only cheated workers and enabled the cheating of workers by their franchises, they also defrauded their own franchises with misrepresentations about this software. They required the franchises to use flawed software that Domino's knew to be flawed. In disclosures to franchises, Domino's promised that Pulse would perform properly and that any errors would be remedied. In reality, the software did not perform as promised. The company did nothing to solve the problem. And this sort of conduct, this sort of willful corporate malfeasance, knowing imposition of a system that they know is violating the rights of workers day in, day out over years is absolutely disgraceful, and we will not let it stand. We're not going to allow Domino's to hide behind franchise law to avoid accountability. In fact, we are seeking to enforce the franchise law, which requires a parent company to provide full disclosures to franchisees and remedy defects in software. There are other allegations that more generally demonstrate that Domino's Corporation actually functions as a co-employer of its local franchise stores and a co-employer of their workers. Domino's does not only control how many pepperonis are on each pizza or how fast pizzas should be delivered. Domino's exercises control over all key aspects of employment relationships at franchise locations, including hiring, firing, and discipline, and the corporation uses this power when it deems necessary. Our investigation found that Domino's officials visited stores unannounced several times a year for inspections, examine every aspect of operations, including many aspects of how employees perform their jobs. In one incident, a representative of Domino's headquarters told the employees at one franchise, "I'm your boss." And just like a boss, Domino's headquarters exercise control over hiring and firing workers. In another instance, Domino's sent its own director of human resources to thwart a union campaign at a franchisee's site. To be clear, nothing we're saying here lets the franchisees off the hook. They have an obligation under the law to pay fair wages, to follow the laws on wages and overtime and tips. But Domino's, as co-employer, does too. As a co-employer, as the cause of many of these violations, as an active partner with franchisees in key employment decisions, Domino's and their franchisees are in this together. We're asking the court to order an accounting and order full restitution for the cheated workers. This should apply to both Domino's and the franchisees. We're further asking that Domino's be barred from using or forcing others to use the Pulse software system, which systematically undercalculates wages, until its flaws are fixed and that requiring them to fully disclose all these flaws to their franchisees. We're seeking restitution and penalties for the fraud Domino's perpetrated upon the franchisees. And finally, this situation is so egregious and the fraud is so widespread that we're asking the court to impose an independent monitor to ensure future compliance and to protect the workers in the future. It's time for Domino's parent corporation to be held accountable. It's time for Domino's to step up to the plate, to stop hiding behind the franchise business model, and to accept responsibility for the widespread harm they have inflicted on working New Yorkers and the widespread fraud they have perpetrated and caused. The epidemic of wage theft in the fast food industry is hurting New York families every day, and it is the responsibility of both the franchisees and parent companies like Domino's to put a stop to it. It's very important to keep in mind who these workers are. They are vulnerable. They are low-wage workers. Many hold multiple jobs. Many are parents trying to feed their children. Many are immigrants who speak little English, maybe working their first job in the United States, often are afraid to speak up when they know their rights are being violated. Their sole focus is getting to work to provide for their families. They don't have the resources to fight back against multinational corporations or much less multinational corporations working with crooked or careless franchise operators. But we do. And on behalf of all the people of the state of New York, we have made cracking down on wage theft a top priority and secured more than $26 million for over 20,000 workers who were cheated out of wages. When the facts warrant it, we've even brought criminal charges and secured jail time. And today, we're making it clear that we will continue to use every legal tool in our toolbox to hold those who violate our labor laws accountable, no matter how rich or powerful they may be. And a few words in Spanish. Mi oficina está combatiendo el robo de salarios en las pizzerías Domino's de Nueva York. Hoy estamos haciendo rendir cuentas a Domino's por el daño causado a los trabajadores de Nueva York. Thank you very much, and with that, Matt will be happy to take questions.
Identify yourself or questions on today's announcement.
Rich Lamb, WCBS Radio. So, Mr. Attorney General, is there any sense of what an average payback might be to some of these cheated employees, how much people might get, or do you have any sense of somebody gets a lot, and somebody else might get $10 or something?
Well, it depends. I mean, there's some folks here who have worked for years, and they would get a substantial recovery. I mean, there are people who can recover tens of thousands of dollars, which is a big deal to these workers. Some folks who work for shorter periods of times will get less, but this is why we want a full accounting, which we think we will get, we're entitled to get, the workers are entitled to get, and we want to monitor in to make sure this doesn't happen going forward. This is a new approach to this. The co-employer status of Domino's has never really been addressed before, but we're very confident under New York law, which has the broadest definition of who's an employer, really one of the broadest definitions in the country, that Domino's is liable. And we're going to recover every dollar owed to every worker for these frauds.
Did the employees ever complain, ever went to HR? They knew that, in fact, they were being paid less?
Sure, we've had complaints, and one of the sources of one of the great sources of information in our campaign against wage theft, which has been in fast food, in car washes, in other parts of industry, has been based on the fact that the employees, that the workers, have over the last 4 or 5 years found their voices. They've risen up. The Fast Food Forward campaign by SEIU, the Work to Organize Car Washes by RWDSU, some important union organizing campaigns, have brought forth many, many whistleblowers to our office, and we've sent the message, come to our office, we'll listen to you, you don't have to worry about your immigration status, we want to hear your complaints. So this has led to an unprecedented crackdown in New York on wage theft, wage fraud, misclassification of workers. As I say, more than 20,000 workers already, and we're not going to stop here. Now we're taking it to the parent corporation.
Just back now, same thing. So, given their record and the fact that they were doing this apparently, according to your information, knowingly, should the average consumer still be ordering pizza from Domino's?
I don't. I let everyone make their own decisions. But no, this and it is important to note also that there are other chains that also have very, very bad records. We are pursuing everyone. We encourage workers and others to come forward with tips to our office with complaints. But the Domino situation is particularly egregious because of the forced use of this flawed software. This is really quite remarkable. They've known for years that they were not only causing their franchisees to violate the law and defrauding the franchisees in the process because they didn't inform the franchisees of this. They knew they could fix it, and they refused to fix it. So Domino's, I note in a statement about our case, has said that our case disregards the nature of franchising and demeans the role of small business owners. In fact, we are seeking to vindicate the rights of small business owners, and our eighth cause of action is a claim against Domino's for fraud, for imposing this flawed software system on them, requiring that they use it, knowing it is enabling fraud and not disclosing adequately. So we're standing up for the rights of small business owners against a parent corporation that really disregarded their rights. And we're going to pursue this to the full extent of the law. And this really puts other parent corporations on notice. You're not going to evade liability.
Perhaps I could just follow up. Have you had any interest from other attorneys general around the country in regard to this? In other words, this is a nationwide chain. Are they using, as far as you know, the same software? And is there any interest in other states?
Sure. I mean, and this is, again, we're seeking to set a precedent here, but obviously the implications are very far-reaching. And we have been in touch with both the U.S. Department of Labor and with some AGs in other states about this. And I think that as this case proceeds forward, you will see this issue addressed. Although I'm hopeful that now that they're facing liability, Domino's will fix this on a national basis. But we're going to pursue this, and we're sharing information. We've had conversations with our colleagues, both in the federal and state level.
Any non-pizza topics?
Non-pizza topics. Are there any non-pizza related issues? Thank you.
Thanks.